3 minutes past 9 on LBC. I want to talk about Uber, which is a subject that I suppose over the last 10 years I've probably covered probably more than any other, particularly when we were just a London radio station. However, I do think that the decision today by Transport for London to withdraw Uber's licence is a national story, because there are, I think, in 19 different cities across the United Kingdom, there are Uber licenses operating. And if I could find my piece of paper, I could tell you exactly where they were, but here we are. Uber has a lot of fans, particularly I think among younger people, because it is cheaper. There's no doubt about it. It is cheaper because black cab fares are regulated and mini cab fares are not. So Uber is operating in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Belfast, Newcastle, York, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, Stoke, Sheffield, Nottingham, Leicester, Birmingham, Cambridge, Cardiff, Bristol, Brighton, Portsmouth, and of course London. So there are all sorts of reasons as to why Transport for London have decided to withdraw their licence today. They say the app is not fit or the company is not a fit and proper licence holder, despite the fact that they have actually made quite a few changes to their operations since they lost their licence initially in 2017. They were then granted 2 extensions, and the most recent one expired on Monday. Now, obviously, Uber are going to appeal this decision. And that's really my question. Do you think the appeal should succeed or not? Whose side are you on here? The Mayor of London has made some very strong comments about Uber today. Lots of criticism from him, not least from his Conservative opponent in the next mayoral election. Now, essentially, the case against Uber is that there were 14,000 fraudulent trips in London in late 2018 and early 2019. They found that dismissed or suspended drivers had been able to create Uber accounts and carry passengers. In one example, a driver was able to continue working for Uber despite the fact that his private hire licence had been revoked after he was cautioned for distributing indecent images of children. So do you feel safe in an Uber? Because that's been the contention here, that there have been a lot of cases of Uber drivers that have been found guilty of criminal offences that haven't been declared. There have been cases of very, very bad driving. Now, look, in any sector, you're not going to get 100% perfect, are you? I think the question here, really, it comes down to, should Transport for London be doing this? And so they say they're protecting the interests of passengers, or have they, given that there were only 43 drivers that Uber have declared that had got these wrong licenses, and they did declare that themselves, they weren't forced to, is that enough to withdraw their whole licence? 0345 6060 973. Let me welcome to the programme, before we go to your call, Steve McNamara, a good friend of the programme, General Secretary of the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association, and Emma Revel, who is the spokesperson for the Institute of Economic Affairs. Steve, very good evening.
Good evening.
Now, I can imagine that you've opened the old bottle of bubbly today.
Well, obviously we're pleased with the decision, but the reality is, let's look at what's happened. The Mayor has based this decision today, or Transport for London has, based purely on public safety. The reality is, you say it was only 43 drivers, only 43 drivers. There was 14,000 incidents of uninsured vehicles being driven by unlicensed drivers, and let's not forget, some of those people could have come out of Wandsworth Prison this morning and be driving an Uber half an hour later, using the flaws in the system. Uber pitched up at the Magistrates Court in June 18 and promised the world to the magistrate. I remember Dara saying, we promised Londoners we got it wrong, we'll get it right this time, you can trust us, all's fine and all's well and dandy. And of course, here we go again, it's not. That's on top of the data breaches that we had, where they didn't look after their customers' data. That's on top of the convictions for no insurance earlier this year, £28,000 in fines. This company is unregulatable. They don't want regulation, they don't understand it, they're not safe, and the Mayor has made a good decision today.
I mean, there are other companies that operate in the minicab sector that are competing against your members, Bolt, Captain, obviously Addison Lee, Green Tomatoes, and several others. Why are they able to obey the regulations and Uber not?
Well, that would be a question you'd have to ask Uber, but of course Uber won't come on programmes like this.
No.
They put other people up, and there's a very good reason for that. It's because there's lots of questions they don't want to answer. They don't want to tell you why they're fighting their drivers every inch of the way when their drivers are trying to get workers' rights. Last week they was in the High Court trying to cover up their VAT arrangements, trying to ask the High Court not to make the court case against them public. There's lots of questions Uber don't want to answer, and that's why they don't come on.
What about the fact that there are obviously bad apples in every single sector? I mean, I hate to say this, but there have been examples of black cab drivers that got up to no good and bring shame on your trade. 43 drivers out of 45,000. That doesn't seem to be a big proportion to me.
No, it's 43 that we know about. It's 43 instances, 14,000 incidents, by the way, that we know of today. But TfL have not taken this decision lightly. They obviously knew it was going to be a political hot potato. You can imagine it's been discussed, to the nth degree. They obviously felt that they had no choice. Bearing in mind, as I said to you earlier, they've been, Uber promised before that these things wouldn't happen. Why is it that Addison Lee, why is it that Captain, why is it that Bolt don't have these issues that Uber have? And let me correct you on one thing here. And you were saying places around the UK where Uber are licensed. You mentioned York. Well, let me tell you, Uber are not licensed in York. York Council refused to license Uber, but Uber operate there anyway using a licence from Leeds because Uber do what Uber want. And this mayor has stood up to them and TfL has stood up for them. It's got to be a good thing for Londoners.
Right, stay there, Steve. I'm going to bring Emma into the conversation. Emma, do you take a different view from Steve, I'm assuming, on this? Why do you think Sadiq Khan has made the wrong decision here?
I think you were right to point out that actually the number of incidences that are referred to are quite tiny. Uber has 3.5 million riders in London, so while 14,000 seems like quite a large number, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually quite a small percentage, and it's an even smaller percentage of the actual drivers who are responsible. Also, as has already been pointed out, Uber highlighted these numbers themselves. They didn't have to be uncovered. Uber said, okay, we've had these incidents, and they actually announced new facial recognition technology that they're in the process of rolling out to combat this. So they were already talking about how they were going to fix this problem in advance of the suspension today. I think what people fail to recognise is how transformative Uber has been for transport in London. Customers massively benefit. People who work for Uber have massively benefited. And this is, I think, an example of Sadiq Khan going back on his promise to lead a London that's open for business. This isn't open for business. This is anti-business and anti-consumer.
Do you not think that Uber have let down their drivers, though, here? Because I'm sure, I know that there'll be a lot of black cab drivers and Uber drivers listening to us right now because they seem to have LBC on whichever kind of taxi or minicab, and a very good thing too. But there'll be a lot of people listening to this who think, we're in the run-up to Christmas. I'm really worried about my job here. And it's all very well for people to say, well, they can get other jobs with the other companies, but that's not going to be necessarily the same for all 45,000 if Uber don't win the appeal.
Yeah, this is going to be massively worrying for people who are driving for Uber, but I don't think it's Uber that have let them down. I think it's TfL announcing this suspension, as you say, what is approaching a peak time. There are going to be drivers who are approaching Christmas. It's late night shopping. It's people coming home from Christmas parties. It's peak time for people. It's dark outside. People are going to want to be getting safe modes of transport home. And for Uber drivers who are now thinking, they've got, I think it's 28 days to appeal. What happens then if there's another extension? People are going to be worried about whether Uber has a long-term future in London. So, I think TfL need to come to some sort of decision quickly, a firm decision one way or the other, because actually this continued uncertainty isn't good for the drivers, and it's not good for people, trying to get home, trying to get around London.
Steve, Emma made an interesting point there, that London is now the tech capital of Europe. It would seem odd that that TfL and Sadiq Khan couldn't come to an agreement whereby this app continues to be used. Are you if Uber gave the guarantees that Sadiq Khan needs, would you still be against the licence being reinvoked?
Let's address your points. Firstly, the mayor's against technology, Emma's saying. Well, in that case, why has he licensed Uber's rivals? You've already mentioned two of them, and there's others. Why has he licensed them that work on very similar technology platforms? Why have they still got a license and Uber hasn't? And if, as you say, Uber was to make these assurances to the mayor and CFL, would they be the same ones that they made to the court in June last year when they promised to behave and keep London safe? Would that be the same promises then, or a fresh set of promises?
Well, Emma, that's a good point, isn't it? Why haven't they put their house in order? They've had plenty of time to do it.
They have, and they've made massive improvements. You can't fail to live in London. Over the last 2 years, you cannot fail. Even if you never use Uber, there are billboards everywhere that announce all of the safety features that are being rolled out. You have your driver's information, you have your car's information, you can share your ride with your friends. The thing about Uber is actually it is a lot safer for a lot of people. A lot of people feel it's safer to get in an Uber because you can book the car at a convenient place. You don't have to stand at the side of the road in the dark at night on your own hoping a black cab drives past.
You don't have to do Emma, you don't have to do that with a black cab. There are black cab apps now like Halo and Get and things like that.
But they're not as prolific, they're not as easy to use. Uber
yes they are. You download them on your phone and you use them.
In London. You could, but Uber is so ingrained in people's consciousness, it's people go to
all right,
apps.
Steve.
Ian, I've got to come in on that. I mean, Emma's saying, you know how safe Uber is? You can see the picture of the driver on your phone. Yes, you can, and it's not a picture of the guy who's licensed. It's the picture of the guy who's scanning the app. In a very, very small number of circumstances, it is not the right driver, and Uber have already said they are going to introduce measures to combat this. It's a flaw that they have identified, and it's a flaw they're going to correct. And Uber are going to do all the stuff they promised the magistrate last year. And finally, Ian, and what I would like to ask is Emma's on here from the IEA. I mean, it's very interesting that the IEA choose to come on and defend Uber when they won't defend themselves. Well, can Emma tell us who funds the IEA?
I can't. We respect our donors' right to privacy, but I think it's very unfair of you to imply that my views are because of some mysterious donor.
Well, can you assure us that you don't get funding from Uber?
I don't know who funds the IEA. It's entirely, our donors have a right to privacy. I'm not aware of that information.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to stop it there because we've gone over our time. Steve McNamara and Emma Revel, thank you very much indeed. You've provoked a lot of people to call in.